My Happy Time Storybook, written by Brown Watson, Children's Book Publishers. This storybook, Happy Time Storybook, is for Millie and Miles. There was an enchanted frog. "Go away, you ugly witch," said Freddie, the handsome frog. "You needn't come near my water lily leaf to gather your bulrushes." Winnie, the witch, had been gathering bulrushes to make a magic broom to fly over the moon. Winnie stopped working, leaned on her crooked stick, and looked very scornfully at Freddie. Winnie had heard a lot about Freddie's conceit. The whole village had been talking about it for a long time. Whenever Freddie Frog's name was mentioned, they all used to nod their heads and talk about pride come before a fall. "What a disagreeable fellow you are," she says. "You won't talk to your neighbors because you think you are too good for them. You won't even look at lovely Fredda Frog, who is in love with you." "Bah!" exclaimed Freddie with good scorn. "I am far too good for all those stupid creatures in Lily Pond Village. I am much too clever and good-looking to have anything to do with them. And while we are at it, I think that you are quite the ugliest thing I have seen in my whole life." "We will see about that," answered Winnie, who, although she was quite a nice witch, felt that the vain Freddie needed a lesson. "Abracadabra!" she chanted a magic spell very slowly. "Now look at yourself," she said. Freddie looked over the side of the water lily leaf at his reflection in the water. To his horror, guess what he saw? Instead of a handsome frog, he saw the ugliest gourmet imaginable. "Why, you wretch!" he screamed. "You have put a spell on me. I am twice as ugly as you are now." "That's to teach you a lesson," answered Winnie as she walked away with her bulrushes. Freddie soon felt very unhappy. All the frogs who used to admire his good looks now laughed at him. "If only I could be friends with them," he said to himself. The others, however, remembered how Freddie had always thought that he was too good for them. Now, they thought, it was high time that he really had a dose of his own medicine. However hard he tried to be friendly, they just ignored him or made rude remarks. "We don't want an ugly things like you about," they said. "Go away. We want to play by ourselves." So poor Freddie had to sit on his water lily leaf, unhappy and alone. Now he had plenty of time to think how unkind and rude he had been, and soon he began to realize that it was all his own fault. Then one day he was very surprised to hear a weak, frightened little voice speaking to him. It seemed so long since anyone had spoken to him. that he almost jumped off his leaf. He looked around and saw little Tommy Tadpole looking up at him. "Oh, Freddie," cried Tommy, "I've lost my way. Mommy will be awfully unhappy if she thinks I'm lost." "Where do you live?" asked Freddie, who felt quiet, cheery at the thought that someone needed his help. He soon realized that it made him feel nice inside to help someone. 121 Lily Lane, answered Tommy. "Come with me, my lad," said Freddie. "I'll take you home in no time at all. We had better get you back before your mommy really starts to worry about you." He did too. Tommy's mother was standing anxiously on the doorstep. She was very grateful when she heard how Freddie had helped. She had always heard how rude and unkind he was, but now he seems quite changed. "To come in, Fred," she said. "The tea's all set on the table." Freddie was so delighted to think that people were talking to him that he just couldn't refuse the kind invitation. Later, he was sure he had never enjoyed himself so much as he had that afternoon with Tommy and his mother. When he reached home, Freddie was very thoughtful. Today, for the first time in his life, he had done something for someone else and not himself, and it had made him very happy. At once, he decided that in the future, he would help people as much as he could. He would go out of his way to be kind to people. During the days that followed, every one of the frogs noticed a remarkable change in Freddie. He started to be helpful and friendly, and you can imagine the other frog's surprise when one day he gave up his own lily leaf for tired Dicky Duckling to rest on. This lily leaf had always been Freddie's kingdom, and he guarded it jealously. "Goodness!" exclaimed the amazed frogs. In the old days, no one was allowed near his leaf. No one could believe the change, and they all said that there must be some gain in it for Freddie. The more they disbelieved it, however, the more Freddie went on doing good things. He gave up his leaf more than once and helped old ladies across the road. Then, when they heard that he was helping Mrs. All by singing her babies to sleep, they just refused to believe it until they went to see for themselves and actually heard him. Then one day, Fred had his great opportunity. He had just had his tea when he heard someone shouting, "Help! Help!" He caught his breath as he stood up on the lily leaf and saw what was happening. Wicked Rudy Rat had caught the lovely Freda Frog and was dragging her away with him. The other frogs were looking on, but they were too frightened of Rudy to try to help Freda. For a long time, Rudy Rat had helped the frogs in terror. He was quite the weakest rat in Lily Pond country, and although the frogs had many councils of war, they had never been able to hit on a plan to rid themselves of these terrible creatures. Freddie knew he had to save her, yet What chance had he against the strong, cruel Rudy Rat? Then he had a wonderful idea. Once an old lady's head had been blown into the rushes at the end of the lake. The old lady hadn't been able to find it, but Fred knew exactly where it was, and stuck in the head was a long hat pin. In a flash, Fred had reached that head, and a moment later he returned, holding the pin firmly. "Let her go," he ordered Rudy Rat fiercely. The other frogs held their breath in amazement and wondered what would happen to poor Freddy. Rudy looked up in surprise. "Go away, you fool!" cried Rudy Rat. "Do you want to meet your doom so soon? If I let go of Freddy Frog, I will kill you." "Let go of her this instant," ordered Fred again. "I'm not afraid of your threats." By this time, Rudy was furious that a male frog should dare to speak to him like this. He let go of Freda and leaped straight at Freddy. However, Freddy expected this, and he thrust and had pinned forward so that it stuck deeply into Rudy and killed him. Then all the frogs cheered. They knew that the wicked rat, their worst enemy, would never trouble them again. Lovely Freda gave Freddy a big kiss. Freddy blushed and thought how beautiful she was. Now he very much wanted to ask her to marry him. He didn't ask her, however, for he knew it wouldn't be right to expect her to marry an ugly gnome. He began to wish that he had not been so rude to Winnie the witch, and that he had noticed before just how beautiful Freda Frog was. From that day on, Freddy was a great hero. His ugliness was forgotten, and all the frogs were kind and friendly. Yet, although this made him very glad, he longed very much to be handsome again, so that he could ask Freda to marry him. Then, one morning, he heard that Winnie the witch had broken her broom, and the idea ran through his head. Perhaps he would be able to marry the beautiful Freda after all. "I made the frogs like me by doing kind deeds," he said to himself. "So perhaps I can make Winnie like me too." So he gathered the finest bulrushes he could find and set to work. The bulrushes were very long and heavy for him to handle, and he had to work very hard. At last, he had made a really fine broom. However, off he went and he took it to Winnie's house. "What do you want?" asked the witch. "I've had enough bad luck today without seeing you." She was not at all pleased to see him, for she remembered just how rude he had been on the last occasion, and she hadn't heard about his change for the better. I thought you'd like this," answered Freddy rather timely as he held out the broom. Winnie opened her eyes wide. "My!" she gasped. "That's exactly what I want. You have changed for the better." Then she snapped the fingers. When Fred returned to the pond, he was delighted to find that he was a handsome frog once more. Then he called on the lovely Miss Freda, who married him, and when she found that although he was handsome once more, he was still kind and polite. They lived happily together and had lots of lovely children. Freddie never forgot what he had learned, and he was always very kind and polite to everyone. And if anyone in the village needed help, they knew they could rely on Freddie. Freddie took care to teach his children this lesson, and they to grow up to know that you can always find a little happiness in life by being kind and helping other people. It's the end. Thank you.